June 1869. John Augustus Roebling stood on the Brooklyn waterfront, surveying his greatest project, the bridge that would span the East River, connect Brooklyn to Manhattan, the longest suspension bridge ever built. A ferry docked. Rope caught Roebling's foot, crushed it against wooden pilings. They amputated 2 toes. 3 weeks later, he was dead. Tetanus. His son Washington took over, 32 years old, suddenly responsible for the most ambitious engineering project in American history. The job would destroy him too. The problem was the river. The East River was deep, 6,000 feet across, busy with ships, too wide for a traditional bridge. Roebling's design required towers, massive stone towers rising from the riverbed, 277 feet high. To build towers, you need foundations. Foundations need bedrock. Bedrock lay deep underwater, 50 feet down on the Brooklyn side, 78 feet on the Manhattan side. Nobody had ever built that deep. Washington Roebling knew the answer. Caissons, enormous boxes, watertight chambers pumped full of compressed air. Sink them to the riverbed. Workers dig inside. The air pressure keeps water out. You build the tower on top as the caisson sinks. When it reaches bedrock, you fill it with concrete. Foundation complete. The technology was new, used in Europe, bridges across the Thames, the Danube, but never this deep, never in America. Construction began January 1870. They built the first caisson in a shipyard, wooden box bigger than a city block, 15 feet tall, roof made of timber layers, 5 feet thick. Inside, dim lamps, airlocks, pipes for removing mud. They floated it into position, started pumping air. The caisson sank. Workers climbed down through the airlocks, found themselves in another world. The temperature inside was 80 degrees, the air thick. Strange. Workers stripped half naked, sweat pouring off them. Light from oil lamps barely penetrated. Shadows flickered. The master mechanic said it brought Dante's Inferno to life. They dug, shoveled mud into pipes. Pressure blew it to the surface. The caisson sank deeper, 20 feet, 30, 40. The air pressure increased. Had to, otherwise water would flood in. At 40 feet, the pressure was double normal. Your ears popped constantly. Your voice sounded strange, nasal, hollow. That's when men started getting sick. First, it was exhaustion, headaches. Then the pains began. Joints, shoulders, knees, stomach. Sharp pains that doubled men over. Some vomited. Some couldn't speak clearly. Some couldn't move their legs. They thought it was the air, the pressure, the heat, the fumes from oil lamps. Nobody understood. Nobody had ever worked this deep before. In December 1870, fire broke out in the Brooklyn caisson, burned in the timber roof, 50 feet underwater. Washington Roebling went down, fought the fire for days. When he came up, he collapsed, couldn't stand. The pain was unbearable. He recovered, partially, ignored it, kept working. The Manhattan caisson went deeper, 60 feet, 70, 78 feet down. The pressure was crushing. 3 times normal atmosphere. Men worked in shifts. 2 hours maximum. Come up, rest, go back down. But the symptoms got worse. January 1872. A German worker named John Myers finished his second shift, climbed to the surface, went home, felt fine at first, then stomach pain, cramps. He collapsed, died within a day. Autopsy showed his spinal cord was intensely congested. Blood pressing on the cord. Hemorrhage. 8 days later, Patrick McKay, Irish, found unconscious in the airlock. Pulse irregular, weak. Woke up, had convulsions, dead in 9 hours. Daniel Reardon, Irish, stout man, heavy. Felt ill an hour after leaving the Caisson. Never made it home. They found him dead on the boarding house stairs. His lungs were congested to a very remarkable degree. The doctor treating them was Andrew Smith. He called it Caisson disease. Had no idea what caused it. Over 5 months, he treated case after case. Men dying, men paralyzed, dozens crippled, unable to walk, unable to work. Washington Roebling went down every day, spent more time in the Caisson than anyone, wanted to show it was safe, boost morale, lead by example. Spring 1872. Washington spent 12 hours straight in the Manhattan Caisson. Came up too fast, collapsed at the surface, unconscious. They carried him home, saved his life with difficulty. The disease shattered him. Partial paralysis. Lost his sight, lost his hearing. Couldn't speak for long periods. Couldn't walk. Spent months in bed, constant pain. His mind stayed sharp, but his body was broken. He never went back to the construction site. After Washington's attack, he called a halt. Stopped digging. The Manhattan Caisson hadn't reached bedrock. Too dangerous. Too many men dying. They filled it with concrete anyway. 7 feet short of solid rock. Close enough. Better than more deaths. The work continued without its chief engineer. Washington moved to a house on Columbia Street in Brooklyn. Could see the bridge from his bedroom window. Watched through a telescope. Wrote detailed instructions. His wife Emily carried them to the site. Every day. For 11 years. Emily Warren Roebling had no engineering training, but she learned bridge construction, mathematics, materials, stress calculations. Contractors brought problems to her. She sat with them, worked through the patterns, cleared away difficulties that had puzzled them for weeks. Some questioned whether Washington was really still in charge, whether Emily was just a messenger, or whether she was actually running the project. She lobbied for Washington to keep his title, his position, his authority. It worked. He stayed chief engineer. The bridge rose. The towers went up. 277 feet tall. Gothic arches, limestone and granite, visible for miles. Then the cables. 4 massive cables, each 15 inches thick, made of thousands of steel wires. 19 strands per cable, 278 wires per strand. Over 14,000 miles of wire total. Men worked at dizzying heights, fell to their deaths, struck by falling stones, crushed by granite blocks. A derrick fell in 1871, killed 4 men. 1 man had his head sheared off, another crushed. 2 fell trying to escape. December 1877. Neil Mullen, Irish mason, widower with 5 children, died when arches collapsed. 3 days before Christmas. 1878. A cable strand snapped, struck 2 men, Thomas Blake and Harry Supple, fell to their deaths. 1873. Peter Cope, German rigger, leg caught in a rope, wound around a hoisting engine, crushed his limb, killed him almost instantly. Men died building the bridge from Caisson disease, from falls, from crushing, from accidents. Others limped away broken, paralyzed, unable to work again. May 24, 1883, opening day. 13 years after construction began, President Chester Arthur attended. Emily Roebling rode across first, in a carriage, the first person to cross the completed Brooklyn Bridge. A brass band played. Crowds cheered. Fireworks lit the sky. Washington watched from his bedroom window, through the telescope. Couldn't attend. Too weak, too sick. The disease still ravaged his body. The newspapers celebrated the triumph. An engineering marvel. The longest suspension bridge in the world. 1,595 feet between towers. Gothic towers reaching toward heaven. Cables strong enough to hold the world. They called it a symbol of progress, American ingenuity, the modern age. Nobody mentioned the bondage. A week after opening, crowds thronged the bridge. Memorial Day. 15,000 people on the elevated promenade. A woman slipped on stairs, screamed. Panic spread. People pressed from both sides, crushed together. Blood gushed from noses and ears. 12 people died in the stampede. Trampled, crushed, suffocated. Even after completion, the bridge killed. Washington Roebling lived another 43 years, never recovered from Caisson disease, constant pain, partial paralysis, lived as an invalid. But his mind stayed sharp. He managed his father's wire rope company from bed, collected minerals, built a collection of 16,000 specimens, donated them to the Smithsonian. Emily died in 1903, stomach cancer. Washington remarried in 1908, died in 1926. Age 89, bedridden for the last 2 months. The Brooklyn Bridge stands today, carries thousands of cars, pedestrians, cyclists. Tourists photograph the Gothic towers, the cables, the view of Manhattan. They walk where men died, where men dug in underwater hell, where nitrogen bubbles destroyed their blood from inside. The plaques don't mention Caisson disease, don't mention the paralyzed men, the broken bodies, the decades of pain. They mention John Roebling, Washington Roebling, Emily Roebling, the triumph of engineering, the marvel of the modern age. Progress demands sacrifice. The bridge required bodies. Men died. Men were crippled. The chief engineer was destroyed. The bodies are forgotten. The bridge remains, never knowing the price. They never do.